Hi guys, welcome everybody. So today we have a fundraising webinar and I invited one of the startup founders, my friend, who just closed his investment round. I hope that today it will be a lot of fun, a lot of insights, and I'm looking forward for this event not to be super formal because I think that everyone are just get bored from formal events. One thing that I want to add is that this event is hosted by EPAM team. So thanks to our friends from Thunderbolt Global Innovation Network for their technical support. And I think that we're ready to start. First, I really want both of us to introduce ourselves because this event is organized on my LinkedIn page, LinkedIn Live, but I'm absolutely sure that some people who don't know me also want to know like what I'm doing and why we're here. But Ahmed, you first.
Hey Jenny, thank you so much for inviting me to this. This is very exciting, and it's I always enjoy our discussions, and this time we're sharing, our very deep discussions with the audience. So so I'm Ahmed Abaza. I'm an electronics engineer by education. So I studied electronics engineering, and then after my college days, I went to work in industrial automation for around 6 years, and after that, I went to work in the learning and development field. So I was working at this startup that basically was offering these learning and executive courses for different types of executives and so on and so forth. And at this point, I learned a lot about like company cultures, like employee engagements, how to build different types of innovative cultures and so on. And afterwards, I went to work at Oracle. I used to work in the Lebanese market, working with Oracle technology platforms. And while I was at Oracle, I read a few books that, played with my mind a little. I had a very stable job, and of course, Oracle has a lot to offer in terms of learning and so on. But then again, I read books like, 0 to 1, Exponential Organizations, Abundance, all of these like Peter Thiel books, and I felt like I'm missing out on this. This was back in 2016, I think, and I thought that I felt like I'm missing out on this technology revolution that is happening everywhere, and people are building awesome stuff, and I felt like I want to be part of that. So I decided to quit, and I started a digital transformation consultancy. Just to explore the market and understand more about, how technology can be accessible for especially businesses that usually were not really familiar with tech. Like enterprises are usually familiar with tech. They have big IT teams, they have big systems and so on. But when it comes to, for example, SMEs and so on, they usually struggle a lot when it comes to adopting technology in-house and so forth. I worked there for a while, and then I met my co-founder, Galal El-Bishbishi, who was just, by the way, chosen to be from in the 30 under 30 Forbes list. We met in the weirdest of ways. So Galal is actually my brother's best friend, and one of
I
the
know that your
ways.
brother is also working in your company.
Yeah, my brother is also working in the company, and actually, so it's weird because the very first talent the company attracted were actually, most of them were like my brother's friends, and they thought, wow, these guys are working in AI, let's join in. Let's build a
They
company in AI
say,
and so on.
yeah, never work with your
Yeah.
family. So how is it working so far?
Actually, it's working greatly because it's great because we started back in 2018, and back then AI was a very kind of an esoteric knowledge of sorts, where just very very few people, maybe in the tech scene or so on, are exposed to it. But then again, most people didn't know what is AI, and is AI like the thing that we see in Terminator movies and Arnold Schwarzenegger, or is it something that we could actually use? And we went there, so one funny thing is, the first time I've heard about AI was in a video game called Metal Gear Solid back in 2001. And since then, I've played this game. It's one of my favorite video games. And, I've heard AI, and I got exposed to AI, and I was so curious from that point on, till, in my career now. And I think myself very lucky to have worked actually in something that I'm very curious about since I was very young. And like all of us, at Synapse, were like big fans of Metal Gear, and you wanted to build AIs, and when we started, we really had no idea how to basically apply AI in a market of sorts. And since then, we started Synapse Analytics. Galal, Muhammad, Shady, so we started it all together, and we decided to build, this company that helps, that makes AI accessible to everyone. And we wanted everybody to use AI, and we wanted AI, you can basically create your own AIs anywhere, at any company and so on. And so Galal and I, we started it, and then the company started attracted talent, and I believe we have built, since 2018 till now, we have built a great body of knowledge when it comes to artificial intelligence. And of course, we'll dwell more about what we do exactly. But I just want to give you a chance first to, of course, introduce yourself to the audience, and then we might jump back to the discussion.
Thank you for this opportunity.
Yeah, of course, and I welcome you to this podcast. And yeah.
Okay, so my name is Jinia Heises. I'm tech entrepreneur for 7 years, and right now I'm living in UAE and helping companies to raise capital. I will be very short. What I really wanted to talk to you about is that fundraising process, obviously. But what surprised me, so you guys, you need to know, several days ago, we met here in WeWork, where we usually your office is here. I'm renting my chair and table, piece of table. And then Ahmed goes, oh, I just recently closed the investment round. And I was so surprised because we were meeting with friends everywhere. And then we were going to cinema, and no one actually noticed that he was in the fundraising process. So it really came as a surprise. And I was really very curious. Was it that simple? That's why we didn't notice it, or maybe you are just so resilient. That's why, you have your own tricks. Maybe you're just meditating every single day for 10 hours, whatever. So that's why I really wanted to know, how did it go? And so, can you describe the process?
So so basically, I get that a lot, and I'm very thankful for it. Maybe my face doesn't show it, but like a lot of people come to me, and they think that, why are you not, why is your hair not on fire all the time? And of course, fundraising at any point in time is very stressful, and it takes a lot of time. And I've heard there was um, a speaker who came and gave a talk about fundraising in the hub in Hub 71 here where our office is, and he spoke about that actually fundraising, when you're an entrepreneur who's fundraising, you're kind of managing another company. So you have your company, the people who are building the cool stuff and building the technology and so on, but you're actually managing another company with different operations and so on to basically fundraise for your work. And it's fundraising is a full-time thing, of course. And I think Galel and I are very lucky that we have a team that when we're out fundraising and so on, the company works as seamless as possible, and maybe even better than when we were involved. But then again, fundraising is a full-time thing, especially in the current market, especially that we are. So we started in Egypt, and Egypt is of course facing a lot of economic difficulties right now. So and of course investors are very much skeptical and are afraid to invest in the Egyptian market because of the currency devaluation and so on. So it wasn't easy. It's a very difficult and tiring process. Of course, there are so many details and so many variables in the process, and there are so many discussions about valuation, market sizes, about competition, about financial modeling, and the business plans, and go to market. And you have to tell a very good story for the investors, to be interested. And you might do everything right. You might have the perfect story, the perfect model, the perfect customers, but then again, the economic situation that is not helping you, and the investor would say, well, you're still have maybe concentration in this market or concentration in the specific market. So yeah, we're just going to wait up till you maybe have traction in other markets and so on. And
But can you say that it's much difficult right now comparing to previous years? Because I learned that it's your third round, right? So you're raising third time. So do you think that right now it's more difficult than it was previous based on the market?
So when it comes to us, we of course are a Middle Eastern company. So and we're a software company that works. And our main, maybe I'll take the segue to explain very quickly what exactly is that we do, and then maybe this will provide some context on the challenges that we face. So what happens is, usually we build, what's the technical term for what we're doing is ML ops, or machine learning operations. So basically what we do is we help companies from different sizes to deploy, manage, scale machine learning very easily into their production, cutting off all of the hurdles of the technicalities and integrations and observability, and making sure that the machine learning that is operating and providing the right predictions and the right decisions and so on and so forth. And we provide a set of tools to make that happen very smoothly at a fraction of the cost it usually requires, and at a fraction of the time it usually requires to deploy machine learning. Now, this is how the company started. So we started by helping our clients to build them their own machine learning models, and then we used our platform to basically, deploy it and manage it into production. And this created for us, since we in the very first few rounds, this created some sort of dilemma, because a lot of investors would come up to us and say, "Oh, so you're an agency," and investors don't like agencies. "Oh, you're a service-based companies." And we tell them, no, we're a bit of a hybrid, because we help the companies build their AI models or the machine learning models, because a lot of the companies, and this is kind of global, it's not just in the Middle East, but a lot of companies still do not invest a lot in machine learning and AI capabilities to build
Especially
their
in
own
the
machine.
Middle East. Yeah, especially
Actually, so this is what I thought, but then again, we had several trips to Europe and so on. And if you're not a startup who raised multi-million-dollar rounds, or you're not like Amazon or Google, usually machine learning is very rudimentary, and the way you use it is very rudimentary, and it's very experimental, and there are not big budgets for it and so on. So actually, it's very rare to find companies who are investing heavily in machine learning, in building their own machine learning models and so on. And so we had a team that actually helped our clients to build their own machine learning models. And this was, of course, as a one-time cost. And then they paid us like a subscription for model in production because they paid the subscription for the platform itself. And this was like a hybrid model between like a services and a product model. And a lot of SaaS companies actually do that, especially in enterprise SaaS. That's a very known model, especially in the beginning, right? Because you're learning a lot from how the IT environment works, how the company uses different types of technologies and so on. And of course, a lot of investors were kept away and said, oh no, this is an agency, this is a services business, we don't invest in services and so on. But this comes from maybe because we're very focused on like regional VCs and so on. And of course, when it comes to software, the region is not known for software. The region is not known. You'll find maybe very few companies that you can count on just one hand that are actually innovating when it comes to software, the software itself. And especially that we were in AI, and AI, of course, is known. If you're investing in an AI company, you must look at how many PhDs they have, how many like Harvard grads, Stanford grads. I'm serious, yeah, because
how many Forbes 30 under 30 you have? How many?
Yeah, we have one now, and we actually have now we have PhDs in the company as well. But then again, that's a different story. Yeah, but then again, so I think the problem was how to get people to understand that this is a normal part of SaaS, the SaaS building, the SaaS life cycle. And yeah, we have a services component, but we have also a product component, and most of our revenues are coming from the subscriptions and not the one-time fee. But then again, this looked scary for a lot of VCs. Because again, they're not familiar with these models. So we also, in every round we raised, we had a lot of challenges in trying to explain or trying to show the investors that, well, yes, I understand there is a services component, there is an onboarding component, but then again, in SaaS, that's pretty normal. That's pretty much normal. Like you find like $1 billion like unicorns who are just got listed in Nasdaq and so on and so forth, and you can find like most of the revenues are coming actually from services and not the product itself. So when it comes to SaaS,
I've heard the idea that you shouldn't rely just on investors in your case, and you should rely on revenue. And you guys probably also would be surprised, but Ahmed's company were like revenue generating from the first day, and it's also not very traditional. Because usually VC, it means that you're raising pre-seed round, and then you're just building a prototype, then you're trying to show the revenue, and then after that you're raising seed round. So yeah, your way was not very typical.
Yeah, so I'm still on the entrepreneurial side. I have, I'm not an investor though. Whenever I put myself into the VC shoes, I always think that, one of the things that I'll have to look at, how is the entrepreneur capable of generating money? And at first, I don't really care how they generate money. I just want to know that they're capable of going to the market and doing anything, but they just can get money out of the pocket of a customer and put it in their pockets. Now, that's a skill that's usually very much undermined. And this is something that from day one, Galel and I, we decided, no, we're always going to have paying customers. Having investments, not having investments. And we stayed the first 2 years, and the team went like from 2 people up to like 30 people, or like 30 people without raising a penny. And we had this hybrid model by which we took money from the customer, we invested in building the platform, and then building feature by feature in the platform, and having the customers basically paying us subscriptions to the platform to make sure that we're managing and we're automating a lot of the processes that are required when it comes to operating machine learning. So I really believe that your capability to making money, nothing gives validation more than a customer who's paying you to for your product. And you know what, actually, to this point, So I was part of the Hub 71 cohort, the last cohort, and Techstars were actually offering the program for the cohort. And there was, this one of the mentors was called Andreas, and Andreas actually gave me, the definition of product market fit. And, I've been doing this for the past 6 years.
Yeah, I love it.
And,
Go for it.
and I've never really heard a proper definition of what market fit is. And you talk with these customers and they tell you, talk with these, with the investors, and they tell you, did you reach product market fit? I tell them yes or no, but we're discussing something that is so abstract and nobody has a clear definition. But then again, Andreas told me a definition that resonated with me so much. He told us that a product market fit basically is the retention and expansion of use of your product of any customer cohort, even if this customer cohort just includes one customer. So if you have one customer that is paying you, and with every week or with every day or with every month are expanding their use and they're becoming more and more dependent on your product, this is where you've reached product market fit, even if this is just one customer. Now, what you'll do is you will find the same customer and replicate the use case with the customers who are alike. But then again, this means that you've created something that is, that's scratching an itch. And that's how you know that you have potential to scale and you have a market to scale in.
It's interesting because I was thinking that product market fit is when you have clients and you're not spending money to extend the subscription or extend the use. But let's go over cold outreach strategy, because I really want to talk about that. And
sure.
I'm a fan of LinkedIn outreach, and I know a lot about email outreach. And some of my clients who I'm working with fundraising and helping them to raise capital here, they are making jokes about that. Like they say, well, you can just get only 2 calls from email outreach, but right now we are on a bear market, and I think it's very complicated to get actually funding. So yes, we can get 2 calls from email outreach, and then 2 calls from LinkedIn outreach, and then 2 calls from WhatsApp outreach. And I'm also doing cold calling, and I'm doing conferences like this one, and posting something on my LinkedIn and getting 2 other calls. And in the end, you have like 10 calls from different kind of resources. And then that's how you build pipeline. So I really want to know what's your strategy about cold outreach. And I know that you have 2 angel investors, one from UK and one from California. So I'm really super curious about how did you get them, and maybe like, are you using cold outreach right now during the 3rd investment round?
So I think it's good to preface this that everything I'm saying here is, of course, very biased to my experience. So of course there is really no playbook for success, especially when it comes to entrepreneurship. I personally, I've done a lot of cold outreaches and I've met investors with cold outreaches and so on, but I've never honestly really closed an investor from cold outreach. Usually it's through, networking events, through like the introductions, like an investor introducing you to another, and so on and so forth. I've been very successful in cold outreaches when it came to customers. But then again, with investors, I think one of the best strategies, especially if you're like an enterprise SaaS as us, if you want a certain investor to actually be interested in you, look at the customer profile that they have, their startup portfolios. And if you find one of their portfolio companies actually has a need that you can provide and you sell it to them, it's an ultimate credibility test right off the bat. And this is, I think this is a great strategy, to get investors to look at you and be interested in you. When it comes to cold outreaches, I'm a big fan when it comes to cold outreaches, especially if you're getting customers. And I think it also works as an investor for investors as well, because, you and I were just discussing that, you could look at an investor just like a customer. You're selling your story to them as well, right? Mm-hmm. Quoting you, of course. So definitely cold outreaches can work. In my personal experience, I've got to know so many wonderful people through cold outreaches, but when it came to closing a round, usually it was closed through like introductions, through meeting people at an event, maybe, and talking to them, and then we close around in this sense. Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. Okay, so and what about Hub 71? I know that you are part of Hub 71, and I really want to know how did you get into this program? For those of you who doesn't know, like what is Hub 71? It's the same like Y Combinator in California, but in MENA region. And I also know that a lot of founders are applying for this program again and again and again, and they got rejected, but then finally ta-da, they're in the batch. So can you tell us a little bit more about different values that Hub 71 brings to companies and something about the batch maybe?
Yeah, so Hub 71 is really an incredible program. And, we graduated, from our cohort. And um, what I really, love about what it does is that it brings a lot of people together from super different markets, from people from super different industries, and um, they are very much on ground with us. They make introductions to customers. They send us, they tell us, hey guys, who do you want to meet, and send us this sheet, and tell us who do you want to meet, and they connect us with all of these people, whether potential customers or investors, and so on and so forth. How do you apply? You just apply, you fill out their application, you upload your pitch deck and so on, and then you get into a series of interviews. And usually what I love about them actually is that they always have what they call entrepreneurs in residence. And this is extremely valuable because one of the things, going back to the investors side, and like a lot of investors, especially in the region, they don't come from startups per se or entrepreneurship per se. A lot of them come from like super corporate or like banking or PE backgrounds. So they're not really super empathetic to the entrepreneurs. So with every session, with every interview with the Hub 71 team, they actually have an entrepreneur who listens to the call. And this brings a lot of like empathy to the call. And the entrepreneur, of course, feels like, yeah, this company maybe is struggling, but then again, I've been there. I know the struggle. This is part of the process. You know what? Take them. And this is a process. So you have to present your story. Of course, it's a very short interview because there are like thousands of companies applying. But you have to get your story straight. You have to, be able to pitch in like 2 or 3 minutes what you want to pitch. And then if they see that you have the potential to grow, you'll add to the community. And I think also maybe this is not like part of their formal selection criteria, but I think this is, maybe it's by design, but then again, they usually select cohorts that complement each other in a sort of way. The ones who can create discussions, who can add to the community, because Hub 71 is a community, right? Building the tech ecosystem of Abu Dhabi here, and they're bringing all of these people together. And I think the diversity and the different type of thoughts, and they think, what are you going to add to this vibrant ecosystem that is being built? If you're going to add something, do you have like maybe community activities? Are you maybe contributing in any sort of way to the people around you, or providing any type of value to the entrepreneurs who are within the cohort? I think this is part also. I'm not sure. So this is not like formal criteria. I think this is maybe how they select startups informally. But because the cohort is incredible people, you work with very smart people, you learn a lot, and usually everybody in the cohort always has something to add to the community.
Yeah, I also can add that I see a lot of very successful startups here. Let's say Tabby, one of the unicorns here in the region. I know I was just scrolling Crunchbase and I found that there is 2 founders. One he's Russian. Another one is local here. They both learned at Harvard, I think. And I honestly don't know the first like pre-seed funds that invested in them, but then they actually participated Outlier Venture. This is a very good accelerator here in the MENA region for Web3 companies. And right after they participate in this program, I see Shrew Capital, I think Global VC, and some other funds here from UAE. So right now they moved their headquarters Saudi Arabia to Riyadh, and they raised, I think, from PIF and from Al Ayan Group too. So I think that accelerators here are very good for, like, they work as market opener, and they are kind of pimping you out in front of all VC funds here. So it's very easy to raise funds here. But I also wanted to talk to you about your previous investors, because we talked about cold outreach and you said that it doesn't work for you. But I truly believe that if you nourish these cold contacts, they convert into warm contacts, and then after that, they become your investors. But also, one of the part of the funnel is always your previous investors. I personally invested in 2 companies and 2 venture capital funds, and I know how founders are working with me as an investor. And some founders are just texting me something like, "Hey, can you introduce me to this investor? Can you introduce me to that LP, whatever?" And I really don't like this push notifications. I really like when founders are sending me, let's say, different news. Let's say, "Oh, I just won Tim Draper Award," or we just published Forbes article, and I'm sharing this information with a group of angel investors, which I'm involved in, or different my social media. So I definitely know that your previous investors can bring you follow-ons, and they can introduce you to new investors. Do you work with your investors from the previous round?
Of course. So investing in a company like us in our region requires a different type of investors. Of course, like our very first investors were actually a PE, not a VC, and this is something that is very not common for a PE to invest in you at the beginning. And I don't think they even understood what we really wanted to do. Even, of course, we've changed throughout the years, but you know what, so let me give a very quick example to showcase what type of investors they are. There is, when you go to someone and tell them, "Hey, let's go to Mars," and then Mars is, that's a very, big ambition and it's not realistic and so on. How are you going to do it? I'll call Galal on Monday to discuss the budget. And this is actually taken from the famous book, Getting Things Done. But then again, going to Mars, the next action is call Galal, my co-founder, to discuss the budget. So, and they just, we went, like our very first pitch, we built Synapse Analytics to actually, our very first pitch back in 2018 was to reach super intelligence. This was like the motto of our company. None of us, have been like a PhD at Harvard or Stanford, but this is, what we wanted to start the journey with. And they said, "All right, guys, here's the money. Do what you want to do." And of course, they're very sophisticated investors. So they're investing in some of the biggest IPOs that happened in Egypt, and they're very, very sophisticated. But then again, they worked with us in every single point in time. They just they worked with us on strategy. They were always helpful. They made incredible introductions across the board. They even reviewed with us contracts that we made with some of our customers. So really, when it comes to selecting your investors, I think you have to select people whom you'd love to work with. So would you imagine, if you're coming every day to the office and seeing these people, would you like to work with them? And in our case, the answer was yes. And of course, they're providing us with an incredible amount of value. And every investor that came along afterwards are usually very keen to make sure that we're successful. They understand that we're on a very tough mission, but then again, they're always supporting. They're always, they're giving us follow-ons. They gave us, introductions to clients and to investors. They, sometimes they negotiated with us against some, lawyers from client side or investor side and so on. So definitely, the right investor on board that is, is a yes and not a yes but kind of investor, it will provide an incredible value to the company. And I've heard like a lot of horror stories when it comes to like boards, going always in conflict with the entrepreneurs, and entrepreneurs going in conflict with the investors. Thankfully, till now, we all of our board are very supportive. They're always pushing us forward. They're always, when we say that this experiment failed, this experiment succeeded, and so on, they're always supportive, and they're always, guys, continue on, tell us what you want to do, and I think we're very lucky in that sense.
Guys, I really want to encourage you to ask questions, because I'm absolutely sure that all of you who are listening to us right now are either looking to invest in Ahmed's company or looking for investments. So just two sides of the coin. And I have one more last question.
Not looking from investments from my side. I don't have any money.
No. I mean, to invest in your.
Just kidding.
Yeah. So my last question, and I think it will be a very tough one, about the difference between American and local investors. And I will give a brief explanation to everyone who are listening to us how the ecosystem works here. So there is some sovereign funds that put money in a lot of other funds, let's say 5 or 6 in the region. And these funds are investing in local companies. They're investing in companies. If you have LLC here in UAE, you have your revenue, like let's say LLC is structured here, or you have revenue here, or you have your development office here, or the branding is local. So these type of companies are like happily funded from all these funds. But also there is some other funds who have the LPs, let's say from Mubadala, which is the biggest fund here, or other local funds, or not just local in MENA region. Let's say Indian LPs put money in these funds. And these funds could be geo-agnostic. So they invest in companies that could be structured in UK or in France or even in California somewhere. So these companies are looking for investing in seed companies that have revenue here as well. And there is a lot other players like ultra high net worth individuals. There are angel investors and also family funds. So that's how ecosystem is structured here. And also we have several accelerators, but they're not a lot, and not every single accelerator invests money in startups. What we do not have here is that we do not have funds who are investing at pre-seed stage. So most of the companies who are growing, like who are developing their businesses here, they raise their pre-seed rounds in their own countries, and they brought the business here in UAE just because there is a zero tax regime, or I don't know, because of the climate, whatever. But also they use UAE as a platform, as a gateway to MENA region. Let's say I already brought up this example with Tabi, the unicorn, with fintech unicorn here. They were structured here. So I think that they raised somewhere from UK, then they brought their business here. They were structured here. They raised their first seed round and Series A, and right now they moved to Saudi Arabia and keep raising there. So that's the usual path. So the question is, how do you see the difference between local investors who are sometimes the first-time fund managers and American investors?
Yeah. So of course, American investors have seen a lot of funding cycles and exits and so on and so forth. And you find like maybe a typical VC in San Francisco has like 60 exits, for example. Here, the ecosystem is still new to a big degree, right? And you'll find like in the US, I remember one time I was pitching to a guy, and this guy actually had more than 60 exits. And in the first 2 minutes, I didn't even complete like 2 minutes. He just stopped me, told me, you know what, you're not getting your pitch right. Let's talk whenever you got it right. And I thought, how didn't I get it right? I'm sure I did everything and I practiced and so on. And this guy, because he's so experienced in startups and so on and so forth, he could tell right off the bat if this is a successful company or like, I'm sorry, if this person knows what they're doing or not. And actually, this was one of the best feedback I got. And I got back, I put my things straight, and we talked again, and well, he didn't invest at this point because he still was like starting partnering in a VC in the region, and his still VC wasn't yet established. But then again, from the second discussion, I received his feedback, and it was a very good feedback. And then we went up and raised our second round. I think the main difference is, I think it has to do a lot with experience, because this guy has built it himself like a couple of times. So he really knows, he's really intuitive, and he really, has some sort of like intuitive prediction about if this company is going, somewhere or not. And I think this is maybe what local, maybe what like regional VCs lack a bit, is this experience, because the cycles, we haven't seen many cycles, we haven't seen like many unicorns and exits and so on. So usually the emphasis is different. So I think when I speak with people, from like global investors and so on, I feel that they're usually putting a lot of emphasis on the entrepreneur themselves, because a VC's job is extremely difficult. You're presented with a business plan, a financial model, and a product, and so on and so forth, and you kind of know that in a year time this would not be the case, especially in the pre-seed rounds and so on and so forth. So you really want to put emphasis on numbers, and by putting emphasis on like financial models and so on, it does not make so much sense, because you're still trying to figure out how your product would expand and scale in the market and so on. Unlike, as opposed to, just sizing up the entrepreneur and see if they can pivot, they can, really understand their customer, they can build something that scale, how resilient they are, how adaptive they are, what happens in the worst case scenarios, what happens in the best case scenarios, and so on. And I think maybe the main difference is with experienced investors, because not every like American investor is like this, but like I think a lot of the successful ones are, they size up the investor because they size up the entrepreneur, because as an investor, your entrepreneur is the one who's going to bring you the 1,000 and the 10 and the 100,000 and the 10,000x growth and scale and so on. Unlike the financial model, because no business ever fails on Excel sheets, right? So the entrepreneur himself or herself is the main wealth generator, is the main person who will get you the IRRs that you want and you need and so on. So I think they have more intuition on sizing up the entrepreneur and putting emphasis on, resilience, adaptability, innovation, dealing with chaos, managing uncertainty, and all of that stuff. Here, because we didn't see so many cycles, so sometimes I think the emphasis is put on like models and business plans, which are always changing, which are always pivot, which are always, they change a lot. And then again, I'm not sure if this is the right thing to do it. And of course, not everybody here in the region is like this as well. Now, as you're saying, we're seeing companies like Tabby who are becoming unicorns. We have people who have seen the whole cycle from pre-seed to unicorn to exit and so on. So the ecosystem is maturing up. But I think the main difference is putting emphasis on things that are we're trying to make a valuation or make a prediction of this company successful on things that usually are not very stable or are not very standards, like business plans or financial models, unlike maybe more global and more experienced investors who are thinking about who are giving value to the innovation itself and how this innovation would scale and how the person managing the innovation would be able to scale it. I hope I'm not sure if you get
Yes,
if
yes.
this answers your question clearly, but I
Yeah.
think that's the main difference.
Yeah, I actually completely agree with you because so I know the venture capital market in America, and I know that they usually rely on valuation growth, and that is the venture capital in United States. But that was created just because there is a huge market, and most of the companies so all of the companies that are built in United States, they can be acquired by different other major companies. We don't
Yeah,
have
cycles
those
are so much
experience.
faster as well. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, and also let's say you hired one PhD data scientist, your valuation grows, and then a lot of other things, how you can grow valuation. Here, you cannot rely on M&As, like big M&As. The only thing you can rely on is IPOs, and that's why they mostly rely on revenue, as you say, Excel file.
Yeah.
Yes.
And innovation in its basic premise, it's very chaotic. It's very interchangeable. And managing innovation is not like you cannot look at a startup like you're looking at a PepsiCo or at a at whatever big company that has standard accounting and so on and so forth. Because again, innovation is chaotic in its premise, and you really want a person who's adaptable enough, who can create a mess just to understand how to build a product that can scale, and then we can clean up this mess. It's like cooking, you when you cook, you're just trying new ingredients and you're making a messy kitchen. But then again, once you've I'm a bit hungry, so maybe my examples are not on point. But then again, once your dish is made, then you can clean up the kitchen and you can put everything around. But you cannot be cooking and cleaning the kitchen at the same time.
You can just
This
cook
Yeah,
cleaner.
yeah. So you really have to be comfortable with the chaos. And investors who are VCs who are investing in startups, they have to have this agility to understand chaos and to understand that innovation is chaotic, and there is a very fine line between building innovation and scaling innovation and um, like basically creating some sort of like standard operating procedures and putting this into like a very framed framework so that the company is valuable or not.
Mhm. Okay, so guys, I see that there is some questions here in chat, and I see that two questions. First is, dear panelists, did you ever face cases with fundraising requests from video gaming companies or blockchains? And yes, we even have a free zone for game development and for Web3. I already answered it. I honestly don't remember the names of this free zones. Probably Ahmed, you can add something, but you can text me, just DM me on LinkedIn, and I will send you the names of these free zones. Free zone is a special zone where you can structure your LLC, and then so let's say I'm here in UAE for 2 years already, and I don't pay tax. I know that starting from the next year, we pay something like 9%, but it's also a minor thing. So yeah, and usually free zones are providing you with a lot of different contacts in your industry and a lot of experts. So it's really a very good thing to try. And another question, Ahmed, is for you. For B2B enterprise SaaS, which KPIs, in addition to revenue, would you recommend for valuation, for growing the valuation? Very good question, by the way.
Yeah. So of course this is what I've been saying, right? I think the two main things. So I think the first one is the retention of your customers. So uh, how are customers, renewing their contracts, and if they're expanding their contracts, if there is capabilities, to upsell and to have the customer pay you more as they use the product, because this signifies that you really are tackling a big problem, and they're really becoming more and more dependent on you. He said other than revenue, but then again, it's the of course MRRs and how your MRRs are being steady and so on is very important as well. But then again, I think that if you can prove that the customer is using your product more and more, they're spending more time in it, they're maybe using more requests or more APIs and so on. I think this is very, very important to showcase that your product is becoming more and more dependable within the organization, and it's sticky, and it's very hard to do any switchovers to other platforms as well.
Mm-hmm. I don't see more questions right now. There is one question. What is essential for investor to know to inject capital? But I think it depends on the stage. Let's say if you're a pre-seed company, then you definitely need to build an MVP. If you're a seed, you definitely need to have at least 3 clients based on American standards. I don't know, maybe Ahmed, you can add something based on here, this valuations and like in MENA.
Yeah, it really depends on the stage. If you're about to get a Series A round, it's all about growth, and it's all about, making sure that you have revenues and you have traction and so on. Maybe in the pre-seed, you need to demonstrate capability and to demonstrate that you're able to build what you're promising to build, and you have the team and you have the access. You have maybe some distribution channels. So yeah, I think the pre-seed and the seed is all about the story and how you can basically create a story that is compelling, that is realistic, that creates excitement to the investor. And I think afterwards it's all about how you're generating the numbers and how are you growing and what is your go-to market to different markets and scaling your product across different industries or markets and so on.
I would probably add one of the cases which I had in summer. I was helping to raise Series A round for a fintech company here based from Saudi. And I remember that I introduced them to the fund, which actually called previously Sequoia Capital India, but right now it's Big XV.
Yeah.
And I remember that in July, the founder had already, I think, 70,000 clients on the platform, and his revenue were about $200,000. But the fund didn't invest in them, even though they had really very good metrics. Because they think that the company is local and they're looking for companies that have a big total addressable market. That was the requirement. So it's not just about the team, it's not just about the revenue. Actually they said, well, we are looking for companies that have already 100,000 users. Well, if you have 70,000 users, you definitely will have 100. And they said, okay, just pass by when you have 100,000. So I was very confused, but then I just understood that they're looking for global companies. And this company had plans to develop just in Saudi for now, let's say this round and maybe the next round, so the next 2 to 3 years. And then after that, they really wanted to try different other markets.
Yeah, so this is part of the story actually. So speaking about your TAMs and your SOMs and your SAMs and so on, I think that's always a story to tell. If you show that, yeah, because everybody have different TAMs and so on. But again, it's all about, as you said, 70,000 to 100,000. If you have 70,000, yeah, you're probably going to get the 100,000 users, right? So it's all about telling this compelling story. So for example, we were discussing, me and one of the entrepreneurs here. What if you're doing a water company, if you're building a water company, a company that sells water, your TAM is basically the whole world, right? So everybody would buy water at any point. Everybody drinks water, right? So how can you tell a compelling story about the TAM that makes your investor, want to invest in you? Because if you say my TAM is $5, $6, $10 trillion, well, right, that's a big market. But then again, how are you going to get 1% or 2% of this market? And if you have a compelling story, if you can create, this movie-like scenario where you're going to, get into a beachhead and then, expand from it into the different markets, and you have the perfect distribution in place and so on, and the investor believes you, this is probably how you get your money or how you get injections. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that we're going to wrap up the conversation in maybe 5 minutes, but I really want to talk about this idea, which we actually brought up like an hour ago together, about this vulnerability and working with investors as with your clients. So I truly believe that. Your investors are also your clients, and you need to understand your ideal customer persona. Let's say in your case, you rely not just on growing the valuation, but on growing the revenue. And your company is profitable from the first day. That's why your ideal customer persona was the guy from private equity, which invested venture capital in your company. And so I think that every fundraising process starts with this investigation process during, let's say, 1 month, when you're trying to understand if your next investor is angel investor. Let's say you're a, I don't know, UK based company. You're raising seed round, and you're raising this round here in MENA region. Does it mean that UK-based angel investors who are living in Dubai will invest first in your company? Or this is the geo-agnostic venture capital fund, which is located here, that has UK-based LPs, or that can be a family office who is managing Sheikh's money, but the manager is a guy from UK, or he was learning in the United Kingdom, studying, like let's say finishing his high school. So all this is a research process, but also the relationship between clients. You said that relationship with your investors is a little bit different from
Yeah,
relationship with your clients, and I really want to
for
hear the
sure.
story. Yeah, let's bring it up.
Yeah. So just just the PE who invested in us at the beginning, usually they didn't invest in us because we were profitable. We're profitable, yeah, but we were making so little money for a PE to invest. They subscribe to the vision and they subscribe to the kind of company that you want to build. But again, so about the relationship with your investor and the relationship with your client. So a client, usually you want to demonstrate a lot of capabilities, especially when it comes to enterprise. You want to demonstrate a lot of capability and a lot of you want to really show your prowess when it comes to the offering that you're offering to the client. Now with the investor, you have to have the leeway to be vulnerable with your investor and tell them, you know what, my product is not working correctly and I need to pivot. And you have to have that leeway. Otherwise, you cannot always be so you cannot fight at two fronts. You're fighting with the market, you're trying to create innovation, you're trying to create, of course, value to the market. And of course, basically, you want to create a lot of shareholder value for your investors. That's an investor is investing in you because they want their shares to be to have 100x value in 2 years or so. So basically, but this comes as a byproduct of the first one. So an investor has to, I think, from my point of view, as a non-investor, as an entrepreneur on the other side of the table, that an investor should not be someone who's although their main stake is to increase their value, but at the same time they have to understand that this is a byproduct of a happy customer. And a happy customer, I have to be, dealing with customers has to be done in a, nothing less than a perfect way. You need to have perfect customer support. You need to, be, uh, answer their every call, support them in every single way possible. And this is, of course, very tiring and very consuming. At the same time, you want to give a picture for the investors that is realistic, and you want to tell them that, hey, I need help in this. Think with me on this. And I think one of our like a couple actually of our investors, that usually when we're not selling as fast as we can, or we're not signing contracts, they sit with us and they, let's do brainstorming sessions. And it's not a relationship where it's a blaming one, where why are you not selling? Why are you not doing this? Why don't you sell more? No, it's more of, let's map out the market. Let's try to understand why are we not selling fast enough. And this relationship with the investor has more vulnerability in it than your relationship with your client. And and you cannot be with your investor. You have to have an openness with them, and they have to be open with you as well. And we support each other, because both of us together will be successful if we're together to make the client and the customer happy. And your shareholder, your share value is basically much correlated with how happy the customer is. If the customers are happy, if they're using the platform, if they're using their product and they're expanding on their use of the product, your value will go up, right? So you need operators, you need innovators with you, you need people who can, pull up their sleeves and go down to the market with you and really understand what's happening. And it's not like a blame. It's not like, hey, this is not working out. Hey, and keep pressuring you to basically please them. I think this is a very toxic way of an investor to entrepreneur relationship. I think a healthy one is about talking freely, talking openly, not being stressing out, because I'm talking to my investors and I'm showing them, my numbers are not, super, my numbers are not super big and so on. And I need to have this discussion with the investors to try to find, a proper solution, a proper, maybe better go-to-market strategy to be able to, grow our numbers and scale very quickly. With the customer, of course, it's a different type of relationship, because I need to please them at every point in time. I need to make them happy all the time. I need to make sure that they have no problems whatsoever, even if I work over time to make sure that they're getting the value I promised them.
Great speech, guys. Thank you so much for staying with us for this 1 hour. I am organizing this type of events and inviting outstanding founders once in a month. I hope that you enjoyed our conversation, and reach out to me if you have any questions regarding fundraising. Ahmed, thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone,
Thank you, guys.
for attending. Bye-bye.
Bye.